In one way or another, you might have come across some people or someone who's been manipulative in your life. However, what if they're closer to you than just an acquaintance or someone you met randomly? That's why for today's video, we're going to be discussing how to actually deal with manipulative parents, family members, friends, or even partners in romantic relationships. I talk on this channel all about mental health topics, friendships, depression, anxiety. So if you're interested in any of that, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below about your favorite part of this video. Let's get started. So first, we have to understand what manipulation is in order to know that it's happening. And manipulation is when someone else tries to control your actions, your thoughts, your emotions, and it's purely to serve their own agenda or their own wants. And they do this by using subtle things, such as trying to guilt trip you or through deceptive tactics. That's why it can be difficult to decipher if it's manipulation or not, because it's hidden. It's subtle. And sometimes when the manipulator is comfortable in the situation after they've been treating you this way for a long time, it's not so subtle, but it may be behind closed doors. So a few examples of these include guilt tripping, gaslighting, giving you the silent treatment, passive aggressiveness is a big one, and love bombing followed by a withdrawal period. So they love bomb you and then they go ghost, they go silent. The impact of this can be detrimental because it affects you mentally, emotionally, and physically when it's done over a long period of time. A question that I get asked quite a bit as a mental health therapist is, why do they do these things? Why do they treat me this way? I would never treat them this way. Well, one, we have to differentiate if you're unhealthy versus if you're healthy. So if you're healthy or more secure in relationships and friendships and within your family unit, then you're not going to play into the cycle of manipulation, coercion, abuse, control. That's unhealthy tactics and usually preserved for individuals who are unhealthy or toxic. So it's not going to mesh well with you. It's going to be something that you're going to be confused by. It's going to be something that you're going to want to work through. But most times it's important to notice some of these tactics, some of these behaviors should not be worked through if it's putting you in danger. So let's talk about some of the reasons why people tend to manipulate. The first reason may be due to insecure attachment styles. So many manipulators have either an anxious attachment style or an avoidant attachment style or disorganized, which means that they tend to fear abandonment or perceived abandonment and rejection. Therefore, that manipulation, that control, that becomes their defense. Now, not everyone who has an anxious attachment, an avoidant attachment, or a disorganized attachment is a manipulator. Let's just clear that out. You can behave in manipulative ways, but hopefully the goal is that you recognize that these manipulative ways, behaviors, are not healthy for your relationships, and you're wanting to change, you're wanting to do better, you're wanting to get to more secure attached. That's the whole goal here. This is different than other personality disorders where maybe the person isn't wanting to change, or maybe there is no personality disorder, but you're just not in a place where you want to change these tactics for whatever reason. This video is not for you. This is for the people who want to understand how to deal with people who show manipulative behaviors in their life, but also for people who say, hey, I'm the one who is doing these tactics and I don't want to do this anymore. This is for you guys. So stick around. Another reason why people manipulate is due to a low self-esteem or past trauma, and we see this a lot. Manipulators may feel in control when they control others. When they feel like they're out of control, it's usually because they grew up in an environment that was very unstable, not predictable, maybe unsafe. And so for them, controlling almost every area and aspect of their lives, inclusive of the relationships that they build and form, is their sense of feeling in control, of feeling empowered. Even though this is a false and unhealthy feeling of empowerment, it's still the feeling that they want. It makes them feel safe. I'm controlling you, so I feel safe. It's not right, but we're talking about why this happens. Another reason is due to learned behavior, classical conditioning, what you see when maybe from your caregivers or from friends or from people around you, your environment. What you see is what you tend to do, especially if it works. You end up knowing this works for me. These unhealthy, toxic behaviors work for me. So when I control others, I get my way, I get my needs met. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I've seen. I haven't known any different. A lot of times when people step out of their normal environments, of their comfort zones, so maybe they start going to college for the first time, maybe they meet different people from different walks of life, they start to notice that not everybody yells at the dinner table. People actually sit at a dinner table together. People are actually nice to each other and don't have any ill intent behind that. Some of those realizations are really shocking because your toxicity, your unhealthy environment is normalized when you're growing up if you have a traumatic history. So you really don't know any different until you step out and see the different. So let's jump into how to deal with manipulators in your life. I will preface this and say you shouldn't accept these manipulative and controlling behaviors. You should work through them so that they do not continue to manipulate or control you. Number one, identify the pattern. Manipulative, controlling behaviors, this doesn't happen one time. There's a pattern behind it. So it's important to keep a journal log or a log entry on your phone of these behaviors so that you can see the pattern. A lot of times it's helpful for individuals to do this when they don't know how to distinguish these differences for several different reasons, but writing it down allows you to see, oh, this is the pattern of when these manipulative and controlling behaviors happen and how they happen. Because sometimes you can even forget, I don't remember that happening, or maybe it wasn't that bad. Keep a log. Number two, I want you to set boundaries, but set them calmly and clearly. So it's important to use assertive communication. There should be no room for, oh, they should know this, oh, they should. It's up to you to do what you can for yourself. So using boundaries and explaining those boundaries. So for instance, I'm not okay with being spoken to like that. If this continues, then I will not stick around. I will need to take some space. What you're doing is you're setting the boundary clearly and calmly. You're stating that this is what will happen if my boundary is not respected. The key here is you have to follow through with your words. You can balance being kind while also being firm. Setting a boundary does not make you a bad guy, does not make you the bad person. Setting boundaries is healthy. Letting people walk all over you, that's not healthy. And remember, boundaries are about what you will do. It's not even to change the other person. Number three, do not justify, argue, defend, or explain anything. When you do this, you start to get into the cycle. You start to get into the rabbit hole. They've got you. And manipulators, what do they love to do? They love to engage in emotional debate. So they love to bring the emotions out of you, because once they do, they got what they wanted. They got that reaction. You don't have to justify every choice that you make or defend every emotion that you have. But for instance, instead of saying, oh, I'm not going, I've got a lot going on, and instead of saying that, I won't be attending, but I hope everything goes well for you guys. Done. Number four, regulate your emotions first. You've got to come first in this, because if not, it won't work. If you come in guns a-blazing, high energy, high emotions, ready to go, it's not going to work. This is because manipulators trigger your childhood triggers, especially if you're dealing with parents, sometimes even romantic partners. They'll bring all those triggers out with their manipulative behaviors. So before you meet with them or see them, it's important to practice meditation techniques. So for instance, grounding techniques, breathing techniques. And it's important to practice those before and during and especially after meeting with those individuals or being around them for a long time. And this also tends to be really effective with family members because they know how to push your buttons. They know you. They know the past you. They may not even recognize the person and the version of yourself that you're becoming, but in their mind, they see you in a certain way. They also know what triggers you and what buttons to push in order to get their way. What is manipulation? What is it rooted in? Self-centeredness. So they want to get their way, whether it's their emotional needs met, their desires met, for you to do something that they want you to do. Instead, while you're evolving, while you're growing, while you're on your own healing journey, if you still have to interact with them, just know grounding, meditation, breathing beforehand, getting your mind, emotions, and physical being right and centered first before you see them, practicing those techniques while you're with them internally, breathing, creating some physical distance, and then coming back in those situations. There's so many things that you can do. Affirmations in your head. The goal is you have to be able to detach emotionally, because if they get the emotional trigger and the emotional rise out of you, they got it. Now, there are going to be times that if you're around manipulators, they're going to trigger you. We're not robots. We can't see everything coming. We can't always respond perfectly. But at least this will give you, if you have to be around them, this will give you a sense of tools and techniques and knowing, I at least know what to do. Not that I'm going to be perfect all the time. Number 5, don't take the bait. Manipulators often mix affection with abuse. And this is what we like to call intermittent reinforcement in therapy terms. And it's actually the most addictive behavioral pattern there is. So don't confuse crumbs of kindness with actual change, because as soon as you do, they go right back, they revert. Now, not every tip is going to work for everyone and every situation. However, I do want to take a moment here and talk about things that should be taken into consideration based on which type of manipulator you're dealing with. So if the manipulators are parents, you may feel obligated. That guilt may come up for you of, I gotta respect my parents. I can't talk bad about them. I can't talk back to them. There's so many different cultural implications in that as well. It's important to also remember that honoring your parents doesn't mean accepting toxic behaviors from them. And you can also love from a distance if needed. I'm not saying that you have to go no contact unless you're at that point in your journey. That's fine. But sometimes loving from a distance, a little bit of space in between, is needed for you to get clarity, for you to be able to recenter yourself and ground yourself. But also implementing structured communication is going to be helpful. So this is where you can tag team a therapy session or a therapist to help you with this, because you can actually work on how is it that I can communicate my needs in a way where I still feel like it's respectful, but I still get my point across. You and your therapist can come up with these actual terms that you can write down, practice, and then say them when you're in those situations. That may feel very robotic, but some situations require you to go in prepared. And that's just the reality of it, especially if you're going to continue to have them in your life. And so a lot of individuals find this really helpful as a guide for them to stick to and stick with in those interactions with their parents. Now, how about when it comes to partners, relationships? You're going to want to look for the imbalances of power within that relationship. So do they consistently guilt trip you, isolate you from others, or blame shift? These are just a few early signs of emotional abuse. Now, couples therapy can be really effective for this, but it does take time and consistency and showing up and doing the work, the both of you, in couples therapy, which is really difficult to do at times, but really effective, especially if on an individual basis, the one who is displaying manipulative behaviors can take accountability first for their actions and how it has impacted you. Now, what about within friendships? These type of manipulation tactics can be very confusing if you're on the receiving end of it, because it's not romantic, it's not familial, then we tend to minimize these things. But manipulation in friendships, it still weighs you down. It's still a burden. It's still emotionally draining. Friendship should be mutual, not transactional, not conditional. So if someone is using access to you for their own personal gain, it's important for you to reevaluate that friendship. So when do you walk away? When do you know this is too much? This person is not going to change. Our dynamic is not healthy. This is not going to work. When do you know that you need to walk away? Here are a few signs. 1, your mental health is declining. 2, your boundaries, they're constantly crossed. They're constantly violated. They're not heard or respected. Or, and this is kind of later on in the game, but you stop to recognize yourself. You start to lose yourself. You're like, who am I? What do I like? What do I dislike? Who are my support systems? Who are my people? Do I do the things that I used to enjoy? Healing from manipulation a lot of times requires no contact, especially if it's a narcissistic relationship. However, I'm giving you tips based on manipulative behaviors and controlling behaviors where the person is interested in changing and is trying to grow, but what you need to do to protect yourself. Also to help the individual who says, that's me, I'm the one who has these toxic behaviors and I don't want to do this anymore. I'll leave you guys with this. Please remember that you're not too sensitive or selfish or cold for protecting your peace. Boundaries are not punishments. They're an invitation for healthier connections. When you can add boundaries, you let the person know, I respect you, but I also respect myself enough and want to develop a healthier relationship. So these boundaries are essential. Whether they understand it or not, still doing it for yourself. So this healing journey for you, it starts when you can validate your own experience and where you are currently in that friendship, in that relationship, or in the family dynamics. And getting grounded in your own values of what you want, how you want to develop these friendships, family relationships, or romantic relationships, what you want them to look like. And then eventually stop accepting less than what you deserve. Thank you so much for being here. If anything that was shared in this video was helpful for you that you can take away from it, make sure to leave a comment down below about that. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and I will catch you in the next video. Take care.